South Carolina is one of the most beautiful states in the country. I'm slightly biased as a lifelong resident, but I love living in South Carolina, and I'm always encouraging others to check it out if they're considering relocating. Let's dig into what you should know about South Carolina before you decide to move here. Hi, I am Bethany Way, and I'm a realtor with Keller Palmetto in Columbia, South Carolina. I've been helping my real estate clients for over 18 years, so I know exactly what you need to know about buying a home. If you are planning a move to South Carolina and you want to make your relocation experience a lot easier, first, give me a thumbs up and like this video, and then keep listening because I'm going to give you a local's perspective on the Palmetto state. That's South Carolina. First, let's get you acquainted with the 4 regions of South Carolina. We have the upstate, that is going to be the northwest corner of the state. Then we have the Midlands, which is where I live. The Midlands, called such because it's in the middle of the state. Then the northeastern part of South Carolina is called the PD. And then we have in the southeastern part of South Carolina, we have the Low Country, and that is where I was born and raised. Now let's talk about the food. This is one of the really great parts about not only South Carolina, but I kind of want to highlight the region that I grew up in because I think the Low Country has so much yummy food, and a lot of people get Southern food and Low Country food confused. There definitely are distinct differences. I am not an expert in this. I would highly encourage you to watch High on the Hog, which is a Netflix series and kind of docu-series about how the African culture and the Black experience in the United States has had such a substantial influence on American food. And a lot of food in the South, especially Low Country food, was very strongly influenced by its African roots. Awesome docu-series. Highly encourage you to watch it. There are also a lot of features about Low Country style cuisine. Southern food is typically going to be known for grits, sweet tea, collards, barbecue, especially in the Low Country, fresh seafood. Here in South Carolina, I am a mustard-based barbecue girl, but we do have different pockets of the state that also they're known for their vinegar-based barbecue. And some dishes that are common with Low Country cuisine that you're going to see here in South Carolina, and you might even see it on the menu in other parts of the country. Shrimp and grits, classic Low Country dish. Perlo, also known as a chicken bog, which is chicken, rice, sausage, and really awesome spices. Tastes really great with lots of pepper. Macaroni pie. We do not do macaroni and cheese in South Carolina or in the Low Country. We do macaroni pie. That is basically a macaroni and cheese casserole. It tastes amazing. My great-grandmother made the best. Hoppin' John, also really popular. We especially eat that dish on New Year's. I think it brings us good luck. Low Country boil, also called frogmore stew, depending on what part of the Low Country you're from. It's absolutely delicious. It's shrimp, potatoes, corn, and sausage. It is boiled, and we eat it by dumping it out on a table that's covered with newspaper, and we just go at it. It's especially common, eat that during colder weather months. And also really popular in colder weather is an oyster roast. We love our oysters. Our oysters come in clusters here. We do the same thing when we have an oyster roast. We get a big table set up outside, roast those oysters, steam those oysters. When they're ready, we just dump it out on a table and get our glove and our shucker, and we just eat our body weight in really good seafood. Our residents are also really friendly and sociable. And I know this is a little bit of a culture shock for people coming from other parts of the country, especially if you're coming from a larger metropolitan, more urban area. It is very common for people who do not know you to wave to you while you're driving down a neighborhood road in your car. Whoever's walking, they don't know who you are, but they're going to wave to you anyway. Or while you're walking and someone drives past you in a car, they don't know you, they might wave at you. Super common, very common for people to talk to you. You might find someone in line at the grocery store or Target having a conversation with you. It's completely normal here. They're not weird. Well, maybe they are weird. They're not creepers. People here just enjoy talking. It's super common. I know it's not common in other parts of the country, but people are very friendly and, outgoing here, and manners are really important. Everyone here is ma'am or sir. I am 40 years old. I would call someone substantially younger than me, I would refer to them as ma'am or sir. My grandmother would come out of her grave and whip my tail if I did not. It is not an insult. For us here, it is very much a sign of respect, regardless of who you are, our relation to you, and what your age is compared to my age. The weather. This is one of the big draws for South Carolina. The weather here is fantastic. We have really mild winters. It almost never snows, and when it does snow, let me tell you, it is a major event in everyone's life. People here do not know how to drive in the snow, or if there's a mild ice storm, so I'd be really careful driving in South Carolina if you don't have to. If we do have a little bit of snow or a little bit of ice, because people here, they do not know how to drive in those conditions. I mean, they do good to drive in the rain. Seriously, be careful when there's winter weather here in South Carolina, because we are just not used to it. When it snows or there's an ice storm, everything shuts down, or there's going to be a delayed opening. So if you're a parent and you have kids, just be prepared that you might be working from home that day or having a delayed start to your own work hours that day. With winter time and winter storms, the biggest challenge for us here, trees might take power lines down and you could be without power for a while. We also have really beautiful falls. There are areas in the upstate, that's the northwestern part of the state, that have mountains and just beautiful rolling hills. Great place to go hiking and see gorgeous fall foliage. And our spring is also beautiful, especially in the low country. Just lots of flowers popping out, green grass, trees growing their green leaves again. It's really gorgeous, and the temperatures are just so mild and enjoyable. And then comes our hot, humid summers. South Carolina gets hot. It is completely normal for us to have 90-degree weather in the summertime, and it is humid. And depending on what part of the state you live in, you may not have very much of a breeze, so plan accordingly. I also get a lot of questions from people about hurricanes. It's really important to be prepared for hurricane season or for any bad storm that might come through, and that's especially true if you live in the PD, the northeastern part of the state, or in the low country. It's going to be the eastern and southeastern part of the state. As you move further west through the Midlands and the upstate, the effects of a hurricane are not going to be as severe as what you experience when it first makes landfall in the low country and the PD. But we can still get a lot of really nasty weather in the Midlands and the upstate. You can get hail, high winds, you can get tons of rain. You can also, there could be potential for little spin-off tornadoes as well. So it's important to take hurricane season and bad weather seriously. You need to be prepared. You need to have a plan in place, whether you decide to stay at home and shelter in place or whether you decide to evacuate. Have a plan for where you're going to go, what you're going to do, who's coming with you, how you're going to take care of family members, especially our furry family members that rely on us. You need to make sure that you have potentially a backup generator for your home. What are you going to do if the power goes out? What if it goes out for several days? Do you have access to clean, safe water? Do you have access to non-perishable food to eat? Do you have your cell phones charged so that you can contact people and let them know you're okay or that you need help? Do you have access to listening to emergency weather reports? So it's important to have a plan in place. Thankfully, I have not ever experienced what it's like to be hit by a strong hurricane. I've never lived in an area where we had strong devastation. I always lived far enough inland that we just didn't experience that. But part of living close to the coast, no matter what state you're in, is an opportunity for hurricane weather, and you just want to have a plan in place for that. South Carolina is a great location, no matter where you live in the state, but I especially think living in the Midlands area in Columbia, South Carolina is just a great location to enjoy so much of what our state offers. We have beaches, we have rivers, we have lakes, and we have mountains. islands. The Charleston area beaches are my favorite beaches in the state. I grew up going to Edisto Beach, and that's a really small beach. There's nothing there but the beach. It's not a very lively place. It's a super laid back, family-oriented beach. You are there to enjoy the beach and unwind and unplug, and that is it. Also, Hilton Head beaches are really popular. Myrtle Beach, really popular place. It is the polar opposite of Edisto Beach. Myrtle Beach is very commercialized. Anything and everything you could possibly want to do is there. Another place that is really wonderful is Pawleys Island. That is a little beach island slightly south of Myrtle Beach. Super laid back, slower pace, kind of like Edisto Beach, but at the same time, you are just around the corner, minutes from kind of all the nightlife and shopping and excitement of the Myrtle Beach area. Our lakes, we've got Lake Murray and Lake Marion are both great fishing lakes. Lake Murray's a little cleaner, nicer for boating and swimming, in my opinion. And then we also have major cities that are super fun to live in, or especially to visit and be a tourist for a day or a whole weekend if you want. Charleston, really popular, awesome food scene, just tons of history there. Greenville, also really great food scene. They have an awesome downtown area. They've done a lot of really good things with Greenville's downtown over the last 10 years. We do have a lot of stuff going on in Columbia. We're often overlooked in favor of Charleston and Greenville. We're not quite as cool as they are, but we have lots of awesome breweries. We're close proximity to Lake Murray. The Riverbank Zoo is here. We also have Adventure Kids Museum. We have an amazing art museum and state museum here in Columbia. We also have lots of hiking opportunities, and we have a super cool river that you can go tubing down. It's a really popular summertime activity as well. Another great thing about all of South Carolina is that it's super easy access to nearby cities in other states like Atlanta, Savannah, Charlotte, and Asheville. So if you want to go to another larger metropolitan city, Atlanta and Charlotte are not that far away. If you want to, have awesome weekend in the mountains, Asheville is not that far away. If you kind of want to get back to that more Charleston, like beachy historical vibe, Savannah also not that far away. So we're really strategically positioned to have fun in-state, but also be super close to do fun things outside of South Carolina as well. If you are not a college football fan, you might have to become one. Athletics, specifically college athletics, is life here in South Carolina. College football is a really big deal. It is a social event. It will dominate people's life every weekend from the beginning of September until all the bowl games conclude on New Year's Day, and people legitimately, they plan birthday parties and weddings and bachelor and bachelorette parties, any major social party that you might be planning. If it's happening in the fall during football season, you had better strategically plan it for when and what time if you want people to actually show up. Football is huge here. Tailgating is a real big deal. People love to go and support their team. You're either a USC Gamecock, that's the University of South Carolina, not the University of Southern California, or you are a Clemson Tiger. It is very common for people to attend the games on Saturdays, head there, 3-4 hours early to tailgate. That's just basically an outdoor party around your car where you eat, drink, socialize before it's time for the game to start, or to host family and friends over to your home if you want to watch the game in the comfort of your own home. Let's get into some of the not fun parts. Let's talk about taxes. Benefit of being here in South Carolina is that we have low property taxes, but only for your primary residence. If you are living in your primary residence here in South Carolina, you are going to be subject to a lower property tax rate than what you would if you were an investor. For primary residences, our property tax is going to be about 0.75% of the home's value. If it is an investment property, the rate is going to be almost 4 times higher than that. We also have state income tax. That's important to know. Not every state has their own income tax, but you're going to be paying both federal and state income taxes living in South Carolina. We also tax all modes of vehicular transportation here. So your cars, your motorcycles, your boats. If it drives, they're going to tax it. So, just be prepared. When you move here, there's also going to be transfer taxes to transfer your car's registration into the state. And then if you move from one county in South Carolina to another county, you have to re-register your car in the new county, and there's also going to be additional taxes for that as well. Let's talk about the law. South Carolina is an attorney state. That means that when you are buying and selling a home and you're doing a closing, that transaction is going to be handled and closed by an attorney. Other states are title states. They have title companies doing that work, but here in South Carolina, we use attorneys for our real estate closings. Attorneys do not review contracts in the state of South Carolina. Contracts here have been drafted by attorneys and also other people like real estate agents. Most little areas of the state, the local realtor organization is going to have their own preferred contract that they use in that market. And we do have a state board of realtors contract that we used, but those are going to have been drafted by attorneys in collaboration with real estate agents and other real estate industry experts in our market. There is not an attorney review period, thank goodness. So it is not going to be the long drawn out process that you might have experienced or expect from other states because we don't have that review period like they do. Let's talk about the cost of real estate in South Carolina. It is going to be vastly different from one city to another. And of course, if you're in a more rural area, those values are also going to be different. I'm going to use kind of the three bigger cities and hit kind of three big metropolitan areas in South Carolina. Here in Columbia, South Carolina, our average home price is probably about $275 right now. In Charleston, that's going to be higher. You're going to be at almost $400,000 average price in Charleston. And then up in the upstate in the Greenville area, you're probably going to be close to that. I think it might be a little closer to around the $350 mark in Greenville. What are some of the downsides to living in South Carolina? Things do move at a slower pace. That is a downside. That also means that the real estate buying and selling process is a lot more relaxed and laid back. And if you're coming from a market like California or Florida or New York State, that can be a major shock. People here do not know as much about their home as they should. There is not an attorney review period, so that part of the process is removed from the equation. It speeds things up, which is nice. In some states, it might be common practice, pull prior permits from the city and review those, and that's just not something that we do here in Columbia. I think the biggest shock that a lot of my clients have when they're relocating from outside of the state is that get these seller property disclosures that are required by the state, that a seller has to fill this disclosure out for the buyer to review. They have to provide information about the home, the age and type of different systems and components in the home. If they're aware of any issues or past issues, they might have to disclose those to you. And a lot of times we get these disclosures and there is just virtually nothing on there. They don't know the age of the roof. They don't know the age of the hot water heater. They have no idea when they installed the heating and air system, but they think it's only a couple of years old. Come to find out, they installed it 8 years ago. People just don't maintain records on their home. It's disappointing. Wish I could change that, but I can't. Just be prepared for that shock. You're probably going to have to use your inspection period to really learn about the age and condition of major systems in the home, even though the homeowner should be aware of it. Just be prepared. You might not get that information and that insight until your home inspector shows up that day. Insects. They say that the mosquito is the state bird. Insects are an issue across the whole state. Doesn't necessarily mean that people are dirty. We have a constant battle with mosquitoes and roaches here in South Carolina, especially down in the low country. There are these massive roaches that are called palmetto bugs. They fly. People that rent a house at the beach get super freaked out by them, and there really is not much we can do to get rid of them. We can attempt to control those, but they're just a part of the bag here. Try to keep a clean home. We try to have a good quarterly pest management system in place to keep those at bay. But insects goes just hand in hand with the humidity here in South Carolina, and they're going to be more prevalent in the summertime. The final downside to South Carolina I'm going to give you is Interstate 95. Oh boy, it is pretty much a parking lot during holiday season and if there is a college bowl game. We are a cut-through state, for people, for our snowbirds to get down to Florida and for them to make their way back home as they leave Florida. And traffic is just a nightmare on 95. If it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, a major school holiday. If there's a college bowl game, oh my Lord, we get so much bowl traffic coming down I-95. You might want to take an alternate route. Be prepared to just be sitting for a long time and probably add an hour or two to your journey as you're traveling. South Carolina is an incredible place to move and one that I wholeheartedly recommend. But if you're still in a place trying to decide what's right for you, do me a favor and click the video on your screen right now. We're going to dive into how to decide what area might be best for you to live in.